This time I'd like to call the meeting to order. Let the record reflect that all board members are present with the exception of Jay Leonard. Okay, and we'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll go to item B1, approval of the agenda form. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve this agenda form consistent with governing board policy and temporarily suspend any policy with which this agenda may be inconsistent.
Second.
Okay, motion passes. All right, next we have recognitions and celebrations.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board, members of Cabinet. This evening we have several great recognitions to present. We're going to be starting out with Arizona Daughters of the American Revolution and the Outstanding American History Teacher of the Year. And Mr. Dean will introduce this item.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Kellis, and members of Cabinet. I would ask the board to please come forward onto the steps of the stage for this award. As we begin, it is my pleasure this evening to share that Mr. Christopher Rasso, Social Studies teacher at Canyon Ridge School, formerly Sunset Hills School, has been named the 2020 Outstanding American History Teacher of the Year. The award honors full-time 5th through 12th grade teachers of American history and related fields and is given out by the Arizona Daughters of the American Revolution. This evening, we would invite the Arizona Daughters of the American Revolution to present the award. Ladies, the time and microphone is yours if you would like.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Mary Lou Fellman, and I am an honorary state regent of the Arizona Society Daughters of the American Revolution. One of the signs of an excellent teacher is someone who can spark a flame in a student's mind and heart to learn and treasure our American history and to become a responsible citizen. Mr. Rasso, you're that teacher. You're the man. Your innovative approach to education ensures that no child is left behind when it comes to American history. On behalf of the Arizona State Society, Daughters of the American Revolution, it is a true honor to present you with our Outstanding American History Teacher Award for the year 2020. We're about 5 months late, but it's here. Actually 6, I think.
Couldn't be helped. Thank you.
We want to present this to you from our chapter, our DAR chapter. It's Agua Fria, Sun City, and we are very honored to have been the ones to nominate you for that position.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And all of your work and everything you've done for the children of Canyon Ridge and how you've reached out to Dysart with so many opportunities for our children to be in contests. We're looking forward to keep working with you in years to come. Thank you.
Great.
Do I get rid of the microphone?
Ready? 1, 2, 3. I did smile, if you can tell.
We all tried.
Congratulations again, Mr. Rasso. Congratulations. Now we'll continue on to item C2, the Government Finance Officers Association and the International Association of School Business Officials Financial Awards. Mr. Ken Hicks will present this information.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Callis, colleagues, and community members. There's a first of two awards tonight, but first being of our proud to announce our Transparency and Excellence Award. We have two awards, one from the Government Finance Officers Association and one from the International Association of School Business Officials. And the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting has been awarded to us, and mainly based on our CAFR, our Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. The CAFR was judged by an impartial panel to meet high standards of the program, which includes in demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story. The Asba International Award was given the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for its Comprehensive Annual Financial Report as well. Both of these are for the fiscal year ending 2019, and it confirms the school businesses our office's commitment to financial accountability and transparency. So I want to thank Ms. Mary Del Spidel, which I saw her in here earlier, and her team for all their efforts. I didn't bring that award, so I apologize. But for the next one, what we also have is the Phoenix Business Journal's award to the Dysart Unified School District for a Healthiest Employer Award. And so for this one, I would like to thank Ms. Janice Peel, our Benefits and Wellness Manager, and all of our staff for their willingness to engage in our wellness program. Happy and productive employees is our goal. It helps in the long run, but the culture determines the success or failure of today's wellness programs. And leadership plays a critical role in affecting an organization's approach to its programming. Healthy employees are more productive and spend less in healthcare, which is part of why I like it. Understanding the specific needs of your employee population and measuring those results is essential. And so we received an award for the number 6 award for the healthiest employees.
And that concludes our recognitions and celebrations for the evening. Thank you.
Next, we have item D1, audience with individuals.
Okay, I'll go ahead and read the statement. Now is the time for the public to comment. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H. Action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. In order to facilitate accomplishing the business of the district in a timely manner, a time limit of 3 minutes will be imposed for each individual or group addressing the board. When you approach the podium, please state your name for the record. And first, tonight we have Beth Simic.
Good evening, Dr. Kellis, members of the board, cabinet, and staff. My name is Beth Simic, and I am an active Dysart parent for the last 15 years. I had considered using my time tonight to remind members of the board of the obligation they made as individuals when each voted as part of a unanimous decision to put the override out again this year. I was also going to consider wagging my finger and yet again act disappointed that members of this board still don't seem to get that kids come before their fleeting political aspirations. Instead, what I'd like to do is share about my friend, Ty Timbrooks. For those who don't know him, Ty was assistant principal and athletic director at Dysart High School. His wife, Marilee, is principal at West Point. Their son, Calvin, is a high schooler. Ty was a brilliant man, quick with a smile, even quicker with a hug, and even quicker than that with a word of encouragement. He took personal responsibility and ownership for the success and failures of each and every child that he taught. Ty didn't just wait for his turn to talk. Rather, he truly listened when a student, colleague, or friend needed him. When I met Ty, he was an 8th grade math teacher at Surprise Elementary School. And for the longest time that I've known Ty, he is everyone's favorite. He's their favorite teacher, favorite colleague, favorite admin. He just had that kind of personality that made everyone feel safe, special, and important. He encouraged me to become a teacher and helped me with the process to become a substitute. And he was equally disappointed when I had to leave subbing after 10 years because, well, it's awfully hard to feed a 330-pound offensive lineman on a substitute teacher salary. Ty was everywhere in this district, whether at his own school or at Marilee's or Calvin's. He attended as many events at our schools as he possibly could. Every year, he and Marilee would come to the Arizona State PTA convention, where I was a member of the board and eventually became state president. And they would be there to support Dysart's local school parents. Ty would famously make goofy faces at me when I stood at the podium because he knew I was nervous. And he would attend as many override events as he possibly could because he understood the critical needs of this district and worked tirelessly to help. Ty was thinking of children and requested that donations be made to Dysart High School, even at the bitter end when the cancerous tumor in his brain became too much to bear. You see, when you give your life in service of others, you do so humbly and graciously. Ty joined out on street corners and with colleagues and never felt demeaned. He passed out and canvassed for all of us. Ty is what We Are Dysart is about. So governing board, as we close out this election season, thankfully, I hope that you will think of Ty and give as much of your time as you can to this last week before Election Day by standing out with our community to tell as many people as you can to vote yes for Dysart. Do it for Ty because he did it for you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kevin Berner.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the board. It just warms my heart to see the teacher recognition that we just witnessed. I think that's very, very important. And unfortunately, we're here for a very different matter. So each of you has a packet of information that we've dropped off. There's no way I'll be able to run through everything in the 3 minutes that we've been allotted, but I'll do my best. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Kevin Berner, and I'm a parent at Willow Canyon High School. We're here tonight out of frustration with a particular teacher. I believe this teacher brings an implicit bias into the classroom and would be shocked if his behavior met the standard expected in the Dysart School District. My son Jaden and his team Marquise are 2 of 6 athletes losing their senior year of athletics because one teacher refused to enter grades in their grade book for 4 weeks, holding them in a failing status and denying them any opportunity to affect their grade. My son asked if he could submit missing assignments as other teachers allow. This teacher declined. He asked if he could correct submitted homework for a better score, as other teachers allow. This teacher declined. He submitted homework early and asked if the teacher could grade it, which other teachers have done. This teacher declined. My son tried to correct mistakes on a submitted homework assignment that had not yet been graded prior to the turn-in date, and this teacher not only rejected the submission, he marked the original paper with a 0, starting that his answers were too similar to 8 other students. When my son asked if there was any extra credit they could do to demonstrate that they had learned the material, the teacher's response was, "Do you even deserve extra credit?" He accused these boys of cheating. When my son pleaded with the teacher to allow Marquise to submit his test corrections, the teacher responded, "When a person commits a crime and someone is the lookout, they are considered an accomplice," and denied it. In preparation to meet with this teacher, originally, I reviewed his Facebook page, and I noticed immediately that he was sharing posts that heavily criticize our society, our youth, our educational system, as well as Black and brown families, and the way that children were raised. I believe he is so affected by our social climate that he's bringing it into the classroom, using criminal analogies to correct these Black and brown boys, further confirm his obvious bias. He's operating with a severe lack of empathy that's abnormal. His relentless pursuit to penalize these boys is abnormal. Again, I'm not the first parent who's expressed concerns about this teacher. If you want additional information, I'd be happy to share it with you. These are the boys. Let me introduce them. They're Cambridge and IB students. Marquise is a football captain and student council treasurer. Jaden is the captain of the wrestling team. Both boys are active in their church youth groups and serve in missions outside of the U.S. to build houses for the poor. They spend 12 hours a day at school and sports, and neither of them has ever failed a grade check in 4 years of high school athletics. They're leaders and college-bound athletes. It's a crying shame that one teacher in a broken system is robbing them of their senior season of football. Look, these are good kids. They don't smoke in the bathroom. They don't deal drugs. They've never been suspended. They don't fight. They don't bring weapons to school. Their crime was being lackadaisical during the remote learning portion of the school year and not turning in all of their assignments. To be clear, in the first 12 weeks of school, Jaden missed 3 homework assignments and as a result has had his future academic opportunities severely impacted. We feel it's only fair this teacher's class be removed from the grade check requirement until this issue has been addressed. Finally, we ask this to be expedited as there are at least 6 students in this class that are currently being affected. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Brent Berner.
Before we go any further, I would like to direct Dr. Kellis to please follow up with Mr. Berner and probably Mr. Croto with this information.
Madam Chair, Ms. Sorsingpo, yes, we will follow up.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Brent Berner. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. As a matter of background, I'd like to give you a little bit of mine as additional experience to the perspective to the current situation that my son talked about. I have an MS degree in education from Vanderbilt. I'm a certified state mediator, certified through the Supreme Court for juvenile and domestic relations. I'm also taught certified anger management courses for facilitator, as a facilitator for the court system when the judges directed defendants to take anger management. My concerns here are the web posts by the teacher about black and brown kids appear racial and have an attitude that is carried into his classroom. It may be his right for private beliefs or even to post them, but when he brings them into the classroom to use and abuse specific students, it's wrong. The posts are proof of biased mindset and are having a major impact on the targeted students. While teenage bullying gets a lot of attention, here it is coming from a teacher. The problem resolution. There may be a system for complaint resolution, but at the high school, it appears hollow. There is no possible supervisory action against grading, but what is possible to address a teacher's abuse of a position? There appears to be no true recourse. The teacher action is set so these students cannot pass. The student is trying to survive, but he's not allowed to because of the teacher's apparent bias. So the long-term impact is ruining my grandson's senior year. Just one teacher out of 3 years and all of his honor courses and all of his other classes is not allowing him to perform or pass and is holding him hostage with no school sports. There are also both near and long-term effects, graduation, college, and health. The student has become depressed. This is due to the treatment and having no apparent recourse. Because this teacher has documented bias and brings it into the classroom, our question is any change possible? Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Kellis, I'm assuming that his concerns will be followed up with the previous families.
Madam Chair, Ms. Pritchard, yes.
We have our last one tonight is Linda McGee.
Linda McGee, thanks for meeting with you. I'm actually a substitute teacher that's credentialed in the state of Arizona. I'm actually a retiree. And I also am a taxpayer in the Dysart School District. The reason that I'm talking tonight is for needed budget changes and no to the override. I'm making it very clear that's what I like to do. The school district, of course, is a moderate size. It produces generally good students, but we are in need of cost containment and changes to our budget and no to the override. Currently, we have students in the last published measure of ability mostly averaging Bs in math and reading. This is good, however, we are not achieving needed funding and parity reimbursement from parents for their students and children. In review of the highlighted budget that we just had, I've pulled a few items out. One of them is because we still have an ongoing bond issue. We have some $15 million we have to pay on that. We have some 23,000 students, and actually we've lost some from the previous year. So actually, rather than looking for more money, we should be looking for less. I've seen a 13.2% increase in the cost of school support services in the budget. I see a miscellaneous fund of around $1 million. I see a field trip budget of around $1 million. I see $5 million for text, library, and instructional aids. Of $3 million is textbooks. I see about $6 million for the IT budget, primarily for students. And I see the student transport doubling from 550K to 969K, a 76% increase. I also see 25,000K for advertisements, which I would think would be the Dysart override postcards that came out once again, even though we voted no a year ago. This is back on again. I see there's 185 preschoolers for an all-day kindergarten and 35 teachers that support that. So I think those are extreme. Another thing, as much as we do have a good superintendent, I think his pay structure, even though we have to pay for a superintendent, his pay structure is extreme. To be paid over $300,000 a year and paying benefits is outrageous. To be able to sell off your leave and actually budget that and then include that for your retirement purposes is out of line. We should have somebody that should be in that position no more than probably $100,000 a year plus $20,000 in budget. So what are we saying? Why are we saying that the parents should pay more? Yes, Dysart does charge parents for activities $100, $200, and $400 per student and family and multiple activities, but I think it's not complete. It's not close enough to what it should be. We need to have people who are actually paying for the items that they're actually consuming, and rather than letting taxpayers such as myself pay for it. For the override itself, for my portion of it, it's over $300 a year. I actually am paying some $800 a year just in Dysart over, levy, and the bond issue that's existing is $241. So to conclude, I think there's a lot of things we should do, and we should stop. We've already addressed the issue of the override. We need to say no. We need to look at our expenses, and we need to teach a basic education. If parents want something more, that's all well and good. If they choose to pay for it, let them pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have for tonight.
All right, next we have the student update. Dr. Kellis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This evening, I'd like to welcome Luis back from Valley Vista High School.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Kellis, and cabinet community. My name is Luis Payan. I'm a member of the District Leadership Council. Earlier this month, we had the opportunity to come back in person with our monthly meetings. We jumped right into it and held officer elections. We also had a roundtable with Dr. Kellis, and we are working on a 100-year Centennial float for the Dysart District to premiere at the Valley Vista Stormcoming Parade to the community. In addition to that, we have talked with the council to see if we can bring a sense of normalcy to the campuses and look forward to hosting a COVID-19 safe event in the community. And we also want to give a kudos to Ms. Brown, who is instrumental in arranging the buses and scheduling our monthly meetings, so we appreciate you for that. And Dr. Kellis' cabinet, Mr. G, and Ms. Pericini for all their continued support and guidance. Thank you.
Thank you. So Dysart is very fortunate to have the Dysart Student Leadership Team, and these are representatives from each of the 5 high schools that we have in the district. And it's an opportunity for them to come together and look at topics for the entire district. They do extraordinary things for their high schools, and they, I believe, really cherish the time that they have together to exchange ideas and some of the plannings, but also to look at some opportunities to bring all the high schools together in some kind of format. Mr. Griesaber is doing an excellent job in facilitating with Ms. Pericini, and I appreciate their leadership as well. As far as my report this evening, as has been mentioned, Dysart is mourning with the Timbrooks family. We are very saddened to lose one of our own. No matter who it is, we value every single one of our family members, be it a student, a parent, or an employee. Mr. Timbrooks has been with us for a long time, and we have seen some happy times, and he has helped us get through some very difficult times. We're going to miss Ty Timbrooks. I'd like to extend a reminder out to our community to remember to vote. And also, we are putting out the call. We need substitutes in a big way. And if anybody has currently, the state requirements are you have to have a college degree and then to get a state certification. Please consider doing something extraordinary in your life by associating with our wonderful youth, and please be a substitute. With the challenges that we have with the COVID and then just life, there are times when a teacher cannot be in the classroom, and while the best classrooms are those with the best teachers, we also have the best substitutes, and we want to expand that pool and invite anybody who is interested to please consider being a substitute. Also, looking ahead on the calendar, we are ready to wake up again the Vista. And we have 2 shows that are scheduled. Even with everything going on, we have everything worked out logistically for the COVID protocols to put on December 5th, a big show called Noche Buena. And then on December 12th, a slightly wicked holiday show. And this is a holiday show using the cast from the Broadway show Wicked. He will be performing. So both of those are certain to be great shows, and we extend our community the invitation to come to the Vista and be entertained and have a very pleasant, safe evening out. That's all I have to report.
Next, we have the governing board update. I don't have anything.
I would just also wanting to echo the sentiments that Dr. Kellis had shared, as well as one of our community members regarding Ty Timbrooks. I didn't have the pleasure of knowing him as long as many of you all have, but I can tell you when I was assigned to Dysart High School as a behavior specialist, I worked with him. And just to walk into his office, I mean, you just felt the warmth that he was. Very kind, warm man, had wonderful relationships with the students, and had an amazing sense of humor. That's the one thing I remember about him. And so I was just deeply saddened to hear the news, and just want to extend my condolences to the Timbrooks family, Dysart High School staff, but then the whole Dysart community, because it's definitely a loss. He was a wonderful man. And then also just make sure everyone gets out there to vote. Research your topics, your candidates from national level all the way down to local. It's just very important that you make educated choices, but most importantly, that you just vote and express your voice. So don't forget to do that on November 3rd. That's all I have.
Same, just my condolences for Timbrooks family and all those who were close with them. I had a daughter who had the pleasure of having him as assistant principal at Dysart High, and same thing. I always saw a smile on his face. I kind of saw him everywhere. You're right. Like, I would go to a game somewhere and he was there, and I would go somewhere else and Ty Timbrooks was always around. So, but yes, he always left a very positive impression, not only of himself, but of Dysart. And I know Dysart is partly where it is today because of him and all of his influence. And so it is a tough loss, and I'm just extra condolences to Merle. So.
I hate to say the word ditto, but yes, echo the sentiments of everybody that has spoke regarding Mr. Timbrooks. Dr. Kellis shared a lot of things last night at his service, and I guess I was okay until Miss Emmett came up and started talking about it. And he was one of those he was kind of quiet, and he was funny at the same time. So you need to watch out for those folks. And great smile on his face, and he will be missed. He was a prominent fixture here in Dysart, and so my condolences go out to the entire Timbrooks family. Again, power of voting. We have our chance next Tuesday to elect officials, just like Ms. Pritchard said, all the way up to national. And so the power of voting is in your hands, so please get out and vote. And I just wanted to recognize somebody that's sitting in our audience, and Mayor Hall from Surprise is sitting there. He's hiding behind the podium there, but glad he is here visiting, and welcome. And I think that's about it. So thank you.
Moving to item F1. I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda item as presented.
Second. Who was seconded?
Chrissy.
I motion, she seconded. Thank you. We'll move to information item H1. Dr. Kells?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, members of cabinet. This evening we have several policy items as a first read or just a review. The first one is our regular board monitoring of adopted policies. And I'll turn this one over to Mr. Croto.
Thank you, Dr. Kellis. Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Kellis, cabinet, and guests, tonight we bring to you our continued monitoring of our policies. We bring to you Section 5, Support Services. We do not have any changes in this section. And it has been reviewed by cabinet, and there are no changes in Section 5.
Any discussion on that?
No.
Item H2, revision of policy 11.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and members of cabinet. This item is one that we have been working on for some time to help us with the operations of the district, and I believe Mr. Croto will take, Mr. Dean will take this one.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Kellis, members of Cabinet. This evening, we bring to you Policy 11.20, the distribution and posting of promotional materials as a change for first read. The change in this policy really is to streamline the policy and to move the current language in the policy that is more related to process into our processes. The policy has been vetted through legal counsel and assisted in terms of language through legal counsel. And as I stated earlier, allows us to move those pieces that are procedurally related into our procedures. The same processes continue to remain with this policy change in terms of all flyer requests still are vetted through public relations. It allows us the same control that we've had in the past with our flyer approval, but it brings us into compliance with not only the way our policies and our procedures are aligned, but will also bring us into the 21st century piece in terms of electronic flyers and their use as well. So again, this is a streamlined version of the policy, and all those pieces that are procedural will remain as part of this policy, just now moved into the process piece.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I was just, thank you for clarifying that. At first, when I saw all that red line, I'm like, what? Like, why are we doing that? So then, obviously, everything still has to be approved as it is now. You're just moving that language to the procedure. Should we reference that for anybody that's looking at the policy to understand that, like, what you have rewritten here, and then just say per
Madam President,
approved protocols?
Ms. Pritchard, yes, at the end of the policy, the procedural number will will follow, which will reference, which happens with all of our policies. And those of you who have been on the board for a while will remember that this, the language in the current policy references back to an agreement made with an organization quite some time ago. Our legal counsel is the same as it was then, so she has vetted and helped us to streamline this policy. And again, to your question and point, all of those procedures remain the same, and they continue to go through the Public Relations Department in the same process that they are now.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
It makes it a lot more simpler, and I am glad that we actually took a lot of that stuff out and still reference it back to the procedure and stuff, so thank you very much. I'm sure it was a lot of work to actually go through and redline and think about it and then come back and everything, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Madam President, Ms. Sawyer-Singfield, we would credit our Public Relations Department for doing the yeoman's work with this, in conjunction with Mr. Croto and our legal counsel.
Thank you.
All right, moving to item H3, revision of policy pursuant to ASBA recommendations. First, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board and cabinet. Again, Mr. Croto will pick this one up.
Thank you, Dr. Kellis. Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Kellis, cabinet, and guests. Tonight, we have a policy revision of 1.4, which is the result of a final rule amending Title IX that was released by the United States Department of Education, the Office of Civil Rights, on May 6, 2020. Title IX, as you know, is a federal civil rights law that was passed as part of the Education Amendments of 1972. It mandates that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be the subject of discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Prior to the May 6, 2020 rule, Title IX did not refer to sexual harassment. However, the final rule that was on May 6th now defines sexual harassment and establishes detailed procedures for how school districts subject to Title IX, which is our district, must respond to allegations of sexual harassment. In those, it outlines a numerous amount of procedures that we must follow and implement. For example, there are 6 groups that must be trained that are a Title IX coordinator, investigators, decision makers, along with appeal processes, process advisors, and informal resolution team members. So those all have to be set up by the district, which we are working on. The policy must change, so 1.4 has been amended by our legal counsel to reflect the changes that must be made by law, and we are moving forth scheduling training starting on November 5th. All employees must be trained. That will be upcoming also. Again, we will do that in our Dysart Essentials, and we need to set up all that training. So we are moving operationally to put this into effect.
So,
Madam Chair, if I could just add a little bit extra to that also, that as much as we would like to focus on teaching and learning, sometimes misbehaviors happen. And in this case, this is addressing sexual harassment. And by requirement, and this is not something that we're just, thinking, well, let's do this. This is something that is mandated of all the districts, that we have these 6 different groups of I don't know what you call the groups, John, there, people. Different groups of compliance. So just the investigators. That would include all of our assistant principals and principals. And then you have your appeals group, which can't be the same as the investigators. And then the decision makers can't be the same as the investigators. And they can't be the same as the appeals group. And then you have your mediation group, which can't be the same people as any of the other groups. So all in all, we're looking at a structure of, I think we're extended now to over 100 people who are going to have specific roles when it comes to complying with this new law, and this Title IX is federal, so this is nationwide. But sometimes, as an outside person from our community, not understanding all of the different requirements that the district has to comply with, it takes people. And so we are fortunate that we have a large district, that we have over 100 people to put into these positions that are mandated. I would hate to be a small district of a district staff of 2 or 5. I don't know how they're going to do it, but it is quite a task, and I like to extend my appreciation to Mr. Croto and his team for putting this all together. Everybody now has to be trained. It's very specific trainings in their roles and responsibilities.
So I have a question. Before, it stated the superintendent was the compliance officer, and now it says that you should appoint one. Do you know why the change that the superintendent is no longer the compliance officer?
Madam Chair, Ms. Tanner, it goes back to the designation of roles and responsibilities. Certain people can't be in duplicate roles.
Mm-hmm.
So to have a compliance officer, actually every school is going to have a compliance officer.
Okay.
At the district level, Mr. Croto, who's in charge of all of human resources, in charge of all of the people of the district, the adults of the district. It's just a natural role, responsibility that would be placed at that level.
And then you said you have someone at each school that's the compliance officer, and do you have those identified yet, or?
Mr. Croto, I believe, are those the principals or assistant principals?
Superintendent Kellis, Madam Chair, members of the board, correct. So all the principals and assistant principals in all of our schools, and the program directors, they will be investigators. The Title IX coordinator is actually the director of HR. Cabinet plays a role, and they are decision makers, and they are appeal board for cabinet. So there are various distinct rules, as Dr. Kellis said. Additionally, I left out, this is for students and staff, which is very different from the past. So there were rules for both. This applies to students and staff. So.
Thank you.
Ms. Tanner took one of my questions, and that had to do with the designation of the compliance officer, and I had the same exact question, so you had answered that. Thank you very much. And I did have another one, but the fact that we have to now have layers upon layers upon layers, I can see where a smaller district, this is going to be quite cumbersome, and they may have to pull in. I don't see how they're going to be able to do it. If there's so much separation and so many different levels, that if it's a district office of 10 people, I don't see how they're going to do it. Luckily, we have the staff in order to do it, and then the different schools and everything, but a smaller district, I can't see it. I can't see
Madam Chair, Ms. Horsink, honestly, I think the only way that they can do it is with hiring outside services to support them in many of these responsibilities. We're fortunate that we can double up the jobs that we already have with current staff. For other districts, they're going to have to contract with outside providers. Again, it's another one of those expenses that is an unfunded mandate. But I would just also comment, the Dysart has always taken sexual harassment seriously. This is not something that we're putting in place because we see that there's a problem. We are complying with the federal mandates, and we will continue to take sexual harassment very seriously at any level, whether it's a student or a staff member. We want everybody here to have an extraordinary experience, and these types of complaints and allegations just have no place in Dysart.
Thank you.
We want everybody to be safe, and we will take any report very seriously.
Thank you. And we expect you to. So thank you very much. Was this the first read? This was the first read. Okay.
This will be brought back again if there are no changes.
All right, moving to item H4, information on Dysart Centennial celebrations. Dr. Kellis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, members of cabinet. We are very excited again, and still, we're going to say this every single meeting we have for probably 3 years, to be celebrating our Centennial, our 100th anniversary. And this evening, Mr. Dean will introduce our presenter.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Kellis, and members of Cabinet. This evening, we will begin with a quick video followed by a presentation on our plans for celebrating our Centennial.
In 1920, local farmer Nathaniel Martin Dysart wanted his daughter to attend a school. He didn't want her to walk the 5 miles, though. So he donated a piece of his own land, convened a 3-person governing board, and officially established the Dysart Public Schools on July 16, 1920. What started out as a 1-room schoolhouse with less than 10 students quickly became a growing part of the community. Enrollment increased to more than 200 by 1937. In 1951, the original 1-room schoolhouse was tragically destroyed by a fire. Despite the loss, Dysart continued to focus on educating local students, and 2 new elementary schools, El Mirage and Luke, were built by the end of the decade. By the 1960s, Dysart had grown so much it was in need of a high school. The district's first 9th grade students attended the newly built Dysart High School in 1962. The first graduates in the history of Dysart were with the class of 1966. In 1977, the Dysart Unified School District was officially established. Kingswood Elementary School was built in 1989 on news that growth was on the horizon in the Northwest Valley. In 2001, the hypergrowth began in the Dysart Unified School District with the addition of West Point Elementary School. Between 2002 and 2010, 14 elementary schools and 3 high schools were built. Today, as the Dysart Unified School District celebrates its 100th anniversary, it now has a community of nearly 24,000 pre-kindergarten through 12th grade students. 100 years ago, our founder, Nathaniel Dysart, envisioned a place where his daughter and the local community could receive a quality education in the Northwest Valley. That goal remains true today. Thousands of children have been a part of our Dysart family over the years, and we look forward to continuing that legacy for the next 100 years.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Kellis, and Cabinet. Today it is my pleasure to share how we're celebrating our 100 years. It's not just every day that you turn 100, so we're trying to do it big. Of course, we have a lot of extra challenges this year that we also have to face, but we're doing our best, making adjustments as we go along. So I'm just going to walk you through a few things that we have already been working on. So the video you just saw, we launched on July 16th, which was our official kind of opening date that we found in our history. So we shared that on social media. You guys did a resolution in July, and we had the cities do proclamations. Dr. Kellis did an editorial, and we created customized logos for each of our schools to use as well throughout the year on their materials and in their celebrations. We've done a few visual things as well, and I have some photos here, so you can see there was a billboard on Bell Road. We've incorporated it to a number of our publications, The Achiever. We had a timeline there in the middle of The Achiever as well. And I'll go back because the bus sign there on the right, those just went up last week, I believe, on many of our buses and some of our district other vehicles. So it's really nice to see those kind of driving around the district as our own little mini billboards. So that's nice. And we've been able to do lots of things through partnerships with our cities. Thank you, Mayor. So they featured us on Surprise Lately, and we're working with them on some upcoming things as well. So some ongoing things that we'll be kind of doing through the course of the year our Throwback Thursday social media posts. As we go through our photo archives, we found those to be really popular with engaging the community. It's really neat to see people tagging their family and friends when they see people they know in those, and hearing some of the stories that they're sharing. So that's really fun. We're displaying 100 flags at different schools for our holidays. So the first time we did that was at Valley Vista over the September 11th. And we put that together into a nice kind of e-card that we shared with our first responders around the cities as a special thank you to them. And upcoming for Veterans Day, we have Kingswood taking on that project for us. So we'll share that out as well with some photos for Veterans Day. And then also we'll be continuing to seek stories throughout the year, highlighting notable alums and adding that information to our website, sharing that out in our publications and on our website throughout the year as well. Some additional things that we're working on, I don't know if you noticed when you drove in, but we do have a new decal on our building that says 100 years, nice and large. So you'll be seeing that on every school around the district, and we plan to leave that up throughout the year as a way to share with our community the wonderful news. And then light post banners, you'll start seeing those pop up. The one you see in the picture there is in El Mirage on Thunderbird, just east of El Mirage Road. They're lining both sides of the road there. So you'll start seeing those pop up around Surprise as well soon. So we're really excited to see those go up. Time capsules, we will have those for every one of our campuses. They're planning to do ceremony, some type of closing ceremony, but also involving students and the community and what kind of goes in there. I guess we probably can expect to see masks in each one of those time capsules. So that'll be fun to see what they choose to put in those. We're doing lists of 100 achievements. Actually, just last week, we revealed our 100 top Dysart achievements. That's posted on our website as well. And it was really interesting compiling those. It was hard actually to narrow it down, honestly, to 100, so it's really neat to see. And we'll be working on additional lists, one specific to athletics, one specific to choices that we offer our community, things like that. And then one of the things we're partnering with City of Surprise on, we were hoping to do the Veterans Parade and have a float in that. Obviously, in lieu of that, they're doing something different, so they're doing a veteran tribute through signs, and we are involving our students to make signs, and we're going to provide over 100 signs for that project, so those will be displayed for Veterans Day, so we're really excited about that. And then some of the additional things we're planning that we're still kind of working through because we don't obviously know what's going to come in the future, but we're still hoping to have some themed floats, and it sounds like we'll be able to have one with the Storm Coming Parade. So anything like that pops up, we're hoping to be able to have a float in the near future. As we have our Festival of the Arts in the spring in whatever form that takes, and our Dysart Heroes recognition, we're going to theme all of those for our 100th year and make those extra special. In January, we're hoping to do a State of the District presentation with Dr. Cullis, highlighting our history and kind of how we've gone from there to where we are today. So really excited to see what comes of that. And then our graduation, we could theme that for 100 years as well and make that an extra special time for those students. And then I've mentioned the closing of the time capsule ceremonies. And then schools also have their own plans as well. They've been very creative. So this is just a variety of things. This is not an all-inclusive list of things, but they're planning for contests, themed events and activities, classroom activities and studies. You can see that's a Western Peak student. They had a Spirit Week where they did a 1920s day and then just different decades that they were dressing up as. So they've got some really fun things planned as well. And the schools are providing us with timelines of events and things, so we will make sure that we let you guys know when there's activities that you can participate in, because we'd love for you to participate in those events. So we're excited to see what comes. We're doing our best to make it as big as we can in light of everything, and we hope you enjoy everything. Are there any questions?
And Madam Chair, before we move forward, if we could return, please, back to slide number 4. I just want to point out that it has come to our attention that the young boy in the track photo is retired Dysart teacher Art Mendeville from his high school days. And so it's fun to point that out as well. So
That is awesome. So in light of what you just said, Mr. Dean, are we still collecting stories from people that have gone through Dysart when they graduated from several years ago, and this is what happened the year that I was there? Because I know we did a big push of that some time ago.
Madam Chair, Ms. Sawyer-Sinkbill, yes, we continue to seek that out. Dr. Kellis continues to search for the first Dysart graduate, and it would be fantastic if we could find one of our very first graduates if they are still with us. But yes, we are still taking that information, and anybody who has information on past Dysart accomplishments from the past 100 years, we would encourage to contact our public relations team.
Awesome. I like the fact that you have several things like including the veterans and just different components that could last throughout the year. Yes, please keep us posted of the calendar throughout the year. We would love to come and help each of here, there. We're not going to be able to attend every single one, but the 5 of us, we would.
Absolutely.
I'm speaking for people, I'm sorry. But this is something that is, yes, like the student was saying, 100 years doesn't come every day, so, or even every year, but this is a highlight for us. And I just can't wait to see everything all come together. But yes, when I drove in, I saw the 100 year, and I had to stop and concentrate on driving at the same time. But it's an awesome little decal that's just up there for everybody to see. So
Glad
thank
like
you
it.
for
Thank you.
that calendar. So thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Yep, awesome. Thanks, Renee.
Okay, next we have item H5, annual expenditure analysis of the voter approved M&O override. Dr. Kellis.
Madam Chair, members of the board, members of cabinet, each year by statute, the district is required to provide this report, and Mr. Hicks will introduce our presenter.
Thank you very much. Ms. Marydell Spidell, our Director of Finance, will be presenting this item. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Kellis, Cabinet and Community. It's my pleasure tonight, as Dr. Kellis mentioned, it is a statutory requirement that we provide annually, it has to be conducted by October 31st, on any voter-approved overrides and also how the district is utilizing those funds for the programs that the override supports. And so we'll briefly be reviewing that information tonight. So just a brief history on the override information. The voters approved the override for 7 years. So M&O overrides have a 7-year authorization in place. And so they are fully funded within the first 5 years of an override. And so at that point, unless the voters renew it, it starts getting phased out. And so just a little bit of history there. In November of 14, the override election failed. And so the following year, that was the final year, the full funding. So the following year, it started the 1/3 phase out. In November 15th of that year, the override election did pass, and so it was fully restored in fiscal year 16-17. And so we are at the 5th year of that full funding in fiscal year 2021 that we are currently in. The ballot language for the override that is in place is listed here, so it includes maintaining manageable class sizes, retaining teachers, providing additional supports for our students in reading and math, teacher retention, as well as additional teachers provided in the areas of music, arts, athletics, and full-day K. And so a couple slides down, we'll go over how those amounts are broken down and the override supports those programs. As mentioned, this is a voter-approved initiative, and so this slide shows the amounts of the overrides that have been approved since 14-15. The override's been in place since 2000, but we just listed out these last few years. And so in 1920, the year that we're discussing, it was 20.73 million. And then that is the secondary tax rate listed there on the side that is directly related to the override. Something to note I didn't include on here, but for fiscal year 2021, we do have a budgeted override amount of 21.7 million in this current year for a tax rate specifically related to that of $1.47 per $100 assessed valuation. And so as mentioned, the $20.73 million override that is in place for fiscal year 1920 is broken out here in the various program areas that it supports. And so retaining highly qualified teachers, that is used to support pay increases for certified staff. It is also used to maintain current class sizes. It equals to about 120 teachers or so. So not having it in place increases the class sizes in those areas. It also provides funding for about $7.63 million for personnel who provide student support in the areas of reading, math, music, arts, and athletics. And so some of those positions include our instructional specialists, our teaching and learning specialists, as well as our special areas teachers. And it also supports the full-day kindergarten, and so it funds half of those full-day kindergarten teachers, and so that is about 30 positions that are funded with the override for the 20.73. And as mentioned, the current year of 2021, that 21.7 million is also being used to support the programs in a similar breakout. So that was a brief overview, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I have a question just for clarification on the class size reduction of 8.82 million. When I think of class size reduction, I think, just to make sure I'm clear, hiring more staff. That way that keeps our class sizes smaller. So is that everything that class size reduction encompasses for that 8.82 million?
Correct. And so that is really hiring the additional personnel to maintain those sizes at a reduced class size. And so it is kind of worded a little odd, but yes, it's the class size reduction. Without it, it would have a class size increase in the amount of students per class.
But that was 8.82 million?
Correct. About 120 or so teachers.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions I can answer?
I think so.
I think I know the answer to this, but Marydale, please explain it to me if I'm wrong. On slide number 1, 2, 3, I think it's 4, where the breakout that shows the different years, the override year, 2014-15, yeah. From 2014-15 to 2015-16, why is there that much of a change? Was it because of the override not?
Yes, so
okay.
that was
Just
when
wanted to make
it
sure.
did not pass November 14th, or November, it had to be phased down by a third that following year.
Thank you.
And so then in that fiscal year, we went back out in November, and then it went fully restored in fiscal year 16-17 at the full 15% override amount.
And
So that 12.56 million is a third reduction of the previous, of the override that had been in place.
Gotcha. Just wanted to make sure. Okay. That was all I had.
I just have a question. I think I'm on slide 6. And I think Ms. Pritchard maybe asked this too, but I'm going to ask it again because maybe I just didn't understand it. But the class size reduction, I mean, really that's maintaining class size, right? It's not, we didn't reduce class size from 2018 to 2019, right?
From 2018, no, so basically that is being used, so right now the override is being used to maintain a certain manageable class size. So without that override in place, $8.8 million less salaries we'd have, which is basically about 120 positions.
Okay. And then the same thing with the last line item with the return to full-day kindergarten. We're not returning because we didn't lose it, right?
So when we did lose it in 15-16, we actually did go down to half-day kindergarten for that one fiscal year. When we did the third reduction, we did actually go down a half-day K. So in fiscal year 16-17 was the return to full-day kindergarten, which is currently funding half of that, of the kindergarten
Right.
teachers.
But this slide says 2019, 2020, so really, that's maintaining on that line for
So
the 2
that
point.
ballot language for that override that was put in place back again in 16-17 was to return to full-day kindergarten, and so this is still the same ballot language from that fiscal year, from the year that it was approved.
So, Ms. Densmore, if I could just
Okay.
interject that when this, as Mary Dell said, goes back to when the current override was passed, this language was put in place that it would reduce class size, which it did reduce. And
I see what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
returning to kindergarten to full day, it did return to it. So
Okay.
as we're going back out now, we're not asking for more money to go even further
Right.
into smaller class sizes. We're just maintaining that same, these same items as they were put into place. If we wanted to reduce them further, that 8.82 would have to be increased. But we're not asking to do that. We're just asking to continue the funding that put us in the place where we are now that actually happened back in 15.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
This might be actually a good qualifying question. So the class size reduction, again, as you said, we're not, if the override passes, we're not reducing class sizes, we're maintaining. And could you remind us what our current average typical class size would be now, and then what it would be if we weren't technically still in the mode of maintaining small class sizes? What would it bump up to?
So if you look at that, just that line item, 8.82 million, that's essentially the cost if we lost this first year of phase out. It's actually about 7 million. So we would look at actually spreading it out, because that's about 21 million total. So we wouldn't take any one of those and completely eliminate it the first of the 3-year phase out.
Right.
So we would take some pieces of all of those and start phasing them out, about a third perhaps. So if you take about a third of the class size reduction, it might be that we increase by 1 student per class. The following year, it might be another student. If that, now we're at 14 million. The 3rd year phase out, we're at 21. We could be up to 3 students in addition. We haven't actually mapped it out and calculated. We're not saying that that's what's going to happen at this point. We're not making those decisions of what's going to be cut. But when the time comes to analyze our class sizes, if the funds aren't there, if that 8.82 million isn't there, then the staffing that's paying for wouldn't be there. So we would be looking at about, after the 21 million is gone, if that's what happens, it could feasibly be around an increase of 3 students per class or more. Mr. Hicks, is that pretty accurate?
Yes, and so it is a calculation, so this is 120 FTEs. It depends on where the formula is, so we're formula driven. We would have to roll it out 1, 2, 3, it could be 4 in some places. We would keep increasing it until we saw the reduction in staff.
Right, I was just trying to illustrate, I think, for people to understand. Everyone knows where their class sizes are right now with an override in place, and if the override was not in place, what they would be looking at class size-wise.
Right, so if you're to take high school, and there, the class max is different at certain grade levels.
Right.
Target. So if you take just high school, it's 32 is how we staff, how we set up the schedules and everything. So 32 students per class. Obviously, band could have 38. PE could have 38, but you get into your math and English, they might have 30. Okay. So it fluctuates, but on average, it's 32. So that class of 32 could go to 36.
I see. So about five students per, roughly 5 students per class is what we're reduced
4 to
to
5
over.
by the end, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Because
Thank
this
you
is
so
just an
much.
override, everything that you've provided us is an override report.
From the
as far
prior,
as-
from our
From the
current
prior.
one.
Correct.
Not-
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
Not for the future, so.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Move to action discussion item I1, approval of the Vista Center for the Arts membership fee. Dr. Kellis?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, members of cabinet. Mr. Dean will introduce this item.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the governing board, Dr. Kellis, and members of cabinet. As Dr. Kellis alluded to earlier, we are looking to reawaken the Vista and are excited about not only the performances that we have on tap in December, but contracts in which we are currently negotiating and looking forward to in the fall or in the spring of 2021 and well beyond. As a part of that, a component of the plan for the Vista along has been to work to build towards a patron board. And so this evening we bring to you a request for approval of the Vista Center for the Arts membership fee. And what this does is it allows various members of our community to purchase patron memberships and sponsorships geared specifically towards different aspects. And you can see in the item what benefits come with those. Again, this is building towards an eventuality of building a patron board, a board of sponsors for the Vista, very similar to what other theaters have with Gamage and others, where they have boards of friends or sponsorship boards, what have you. And so this evening, we request the board's approval to begin seeking these patron memberships to the Vista.
Any discussion?
I have one question for Mr. Dean. On the sponsor and membership packages, each one of these has, I want to say it's like the third bullet down, VIP room access passes. And in parentheses, it says availability is dependent upon DHS benchmarks.
Madam Chair, Ms. Sori-Sinkbill, we chuckled in cabinet at this item as well.
Okay.
Those are not Dysart High School benchmarks. Those are the Department of Health Services benchmarks.
Thank you.
So they
A little worried there.
yes, appropriately referenced AZDHS.
Thank you.
That may help a bit.
All right.
Can you just clarify how this works, I mean, financially? So the monies that are, I guess, sponsored, how does that fit in with Dysart? Is it going into the Dysart's budget, or is it community ed, or how does that work?
Madam Chair, you'll recall that the Vista Center for the Arts is run through the Community Education Department, and Community Ed is a completely self-funded department that is outside of the Dysart budget. They sustain themselves completely, and that is part of the Vista aspect as well. And so, as it stands currently, the proposal would those funds would be in, or those sponsorship pieces would be in a fund held through Community Education. Those monies would then go back into the Vista for future shows, upgrades, whatever the case may be there. As we look forward into the future of building a patron board, that structure may change a bit, but we certainly would come to the board prior to that ever happening, and we're a bit away from getting to that piece.
Right.
Ms. Densmore, it's kind of success breeds success. In order to get popular shows, you have to have a funding source to be able to pay those performers to come. And what the big venues like Gamage have been able to do, even just in Wickenburg, the Del Webb Center, they have the Del Webb Society, and they're able to bring in the popular shows because the society members are contributing. Obviously, the more popular the show, the more expensive it is to bring them to your facility. When you bring those popular shows, more people come and watch. And so it kind of breeds upon itself. We're just excited to be able to offer those very popular shows and make the Vista a place where our community wants to come and be proud of and say that they have seen somebody like Brian Reagan or U2 or Ariel Speedwagon.
But again, we're under some contract negotiations currently with folks that we're excited about announcing in the future.
Thank you.
Like you too, and REO Speedwagon?
Yeah. What?
We can't say anything officially.
We are in contract negotiations with some names that would be very familiar to those in our community.
From the 80s?
Anyone
80s?
Younger than 30s? Anyone younger in their below 30 or anything?
We're working on that piece too, Ms. Tanner.
Well, you got Brian Regan, Goat Boy, and
We are in contract negotiations with people who would be very familiar in our
all
community,
right, we like
with all aspects of our
we
community.
like that.
So, to kind of go back on that, but you mentioned that those monies would obviously be put back into the Vista programs and also to possibly pay for repairs. I know that we had some repairs on the list, last year. Would we be able to get some of those things taken care of that weren't able to get taken care of last year?
Madam Chair, we do have a list of renovations that we would like to make to the Vista. Some of them are quite expensive and would have been handled through a bond had the bond passed last year. However, the patron membership would provide us the opportunity to work towards some of those as well. There's some pieces that are lower hanging fruit than others in terms of costs that we certainly could look into. But yes, it is our goal and our intent to continue to renovate the Vista as possible to make it the shining performance center in the Valley.
Just as an example, consider the boosters for a high school sports program. They do a lot to contribute and support the sports programs, but if there are large dollar items, the boosters just don't have the funds to be able to put in new bleachers or to put in a new scoreboard or to put in artificial turf or other large dollars. This is the same thing. The society membership would be able to continue to support the Vista, but in order to attract the most popular performers, in their contracts, they expect a certain level of equipment, a certain level of amenities within a performance center. And those are the larger dollar items that we would be going out to ask for support with.
Okay. So we would be involved in some of those conversations then? Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Make a
All right, call for the
motion.
vote. I'm sorry, somebody want to make a motion?
I'll move that the governing board approve the Vista Center for the Arts membership fee for the 2020-2021 season.
Second?
And we would also just like to point out the hard work and all of the dedication from John Williams as the Director of Community Education and his staff to really help us realize the vision for the Vista. So.
Thank you.
He's here.
Okay, item I2, recommendation to approve a guest teacher incentive program. Dr. Kellis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and members of Cabinet. As I mentioned earlier this evening, we are in dire need of substitutes, and Mr. Croto is presenting a plan today that will help incentivize our current and future substitutes to pick up some of those jobs. So Mr. Croto will present this item.
Thank you, Dr. Kellis. Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Kellis, Cabinet, and guests. Tonight we bring to you an item for approval which Dr. Kellis just outlined for our guest teacher incentive program. Guest teachers, substitutes, are what we call them. In this district, we refer to them as our guest teachers on our campuses. Currently, we have 291 active guest teachers on the rosters. They work for ESI, which is a third-party company which does all our substitute or guest teacher employment. Since the school year started this year, 76 of those guest teachers are working, 76 out of the 291, working in a range from 1 to 5 days per week. That equates to about 26% of the workforce in our guest teachers that are actually working in our schools. So there's a great need and a great shortage, as Dr. Kellis has been mentioning tonight. Of those 76, 58% of them are only working 1 or 2 days. And as you know, school goes 5 days, so that leaves us 3 days that we don't have a lot of coverage. Our fill rates, which is when we put numbers, we put requests for guest teachers. For instance, today we had 145 requests for guest teachers throughout the district in various roles. We filled 71 of those for a fill rate of about 48% today. Over the last month, I can tell you there's been one day, and that was October 19th, that we were over 50%, and that was 51% on our fill rate. So on average, from August through October, this year we're averaging 59% because it was a little bit higher in August and September. This month, right now, to date, we're averaging 47% on our fill rate. And with, like Dr. Kellis said earlier, with everything happening around us, the COVID and people having to quarantine, we have a great need for people to be helping out in our schools. So we have been working with ESI, Ken, myself, and the people from ESI to come up with a way to incentivize our guest teachers to work more. We want to do two things. One, encourage those 291, more of them to work than just 76. And of those that are working, we want them to work more days rather than 1 or 2. So we're trying to move that group up, take more days, and hey, come work for us. We need you to come to work. So we came up with a plan. We'd like to pilot this plan, and Ken will go over the money part because that's what he does. But working from November 1st to December 11th, that's 27 work days for our guest teachers. We would like to go a tier 1 incentive. So if a guest teacher takes 14 of those days, which is roughly 50%, 14 to 20 of the 27 days, we will give them an extra incentive of $1,000. If they work 21 to 27 days in this pilot period, they would receive an extra incentive of $1,500. And Mr. Hicks can talk to you about the ramifications on our budget.
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Kellis, colleagues, community members, thank you very much. And so as Mr. Croto indicated, that we're trying to incentivize more days. And so with a 2-tier approach of $1,000 or $1,500, depending on how many days that you sub for us during those 27 days, really what we're looking at is there's a guaranteed cost. Basically, if you look at the month of September and October, there's already people that are meeting this requirement. And so that's not really incentivizing anybody. So we're basically saying, putting this pilot program in for those 2 months, for the 27 work days, we're pretty much guaranteed to spend an additional $50,000 if everything stayed exactly the same. So if at the end of this program and we pay out $50,000 and we incentivize nobody, there is a cost without the benefit of getting more subs. But if we look at, if we do incentivize, and we've looked at some modeling, and if it does move the needle, we're projecting, just talking with the SI, and these are just projections, we're just looking at models and projections, that if we did increase the fill rate, we could pick up a potential additional 26 subs per day spread out over the time. And just on that modeling, to get an additional 45 subs to work more time or more days, or new people coming in that are part of our sub pool, it would cost probably around $115,000. So the more successful this program is, the more it's going to cost. But the benefit is we have more subs, and so we're not putting more stress on our system and the current teachers and adding more students into a class. Because right now they're being split and being covered an additional way, which during this time, in the COVID time, it's creating a lot of stress and problems across our system right now. And so the goal is to incentivize our sub pool to take more days, or for more of them to become active and then take more days. The cost is that the more we're successful, the more it will cost. But we did put it as a pilot program, and we're only doing it for 27 days to cap it so that it's not run out of control in that sense.
And to add to that, currently, we do have staff covering those open positions. We have principals covering classes. We have TLSs covering classes. We have teachers taking extra classes, missing their prep periods, and they're being compensated for that. So the system is totally stressed right now. I believe our employees, this is one of the biggest stressors in running a school, and we hear it from them every time we meet. And we're just looking for ways to help. Like Ken said, this is a pilot for just November and December. If miraculously it was amazing, we would bring that back to you. We will monitor it, obviously, with numbers and come back and report that. And if it's wildly successful, we could talk about continuing it in the future.
Mr. Hicks, could you just give a quick report on how much we have not spent on subs because we haven't been able to find any?
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board. So last year, as you remember from the annual financial report, we rolled forward almost $1 million in unspent subs not being able to fill. Now this year, the amount's not nearly the same because we're splitting classes, and so we do split the sub rate between the teachers that are taking that. And so we do have a small amount cushion this year, but we do have the carryover from last year, which we said there's going to be increased costs this year. So if you remember from the budget AFR presentation, we rolled forward probably over $1.6 million additional that we were not expecting to roll forward, and that's to cover additional costs. So this could be a little bit of additional costs, but right now, and we have that carry forward to cover the additional costs, we need to help the stress in the system. And so this is reacting and trying to provide a pilot program that we think could be incentivized. We don't believe there's another district in the state doing this, and so we've been looking for creative ways to increase the sub coverage. We have a little bit of savings in this year. We have the carry forward from last year. So it's a conservative approach to try to move the needle a little bit and to help our teachers and our staff out. We have so many people covering. We have run this by our principals to ask about it and got very positive comments about thank you for trying to do something. And so to me, if we only spend $50,000, that is not a success. We need to, we are hoping to do something to actually, so the more we spend on this, the more successful it is. And that is what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say I appreciate when administration takes the time to listen to staff and you know, hear them out of that hardship and the stress that it is on them and trying to actively find ways to help within the school. So I just appreciate that very much.
I got a couple of questions. So I know that all of the districts are feeling the stress, the pinch, having to split students, split the classrooms and put them in other classrooms. And I like Ms. Tanner, I do appreciate that, but a couple of things come to mind. This incentive, of course, is paid on top of their sub rate. This would also include those that are on long-term assignments. That would be on top of, right? Okay. And where would the funds be coming from? I know you were talking about the carryover, but where specifically the carryover?
The carry forward, yep.
Just the carry forward,
Yep.
okay. When we do pay, are we paying directly to ESI for them to pay? I mean, how is it going to be tracked? Tracked through ESI?
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board. So yes, at the end of the December 11th, I believe is the last day, through the 27th, December 11th, we would do a reconciling at the end of that. So after that pay period in the 16th, we would reconcile. They would submit us an invoice of how many teachers qualified. I don't know if it's ASAP still, but we use a process that we manage the sub-process in conjunction with them, and then we pay that bill. So we would see how many met the criteria of 14 days or 21 days. So are they tier 1, tier 2? Then we would make a payment, and then on their payment, they would pay those subs the incentive payment. I think it's the January 8th pay period for those subs for an incentive pay.
Okay. Sounds good. I mean, you know, if you've already run it past the principals and it's sad that our average is 47% right now. That's a lot of substitutes that we could use, and I totally understand some of the fears that are out there regarding COVID, but I also understand the stress that is on the teachers, and ultimately it's on the students, that they don't have that continued support, and whether it's a regular teacher or whether it's with a substitute teacher. So I do appreciate the fact that we're trying to pilot, that your principals are on board with it, because having principals and probably some district staff going into substitute into the schools is taking you away from your duties, and it's a ripple effect, and I don't want that to happen. So I like the fact that you're thinking outside the box. Good ideas come that way, and if we get the results that, you know, that subs are coming in more and more, maybe other districts might jump on that bandwagon also and create their own.
We hope they don't.
We hope they don't, because it would be taking away from ours. I know ESI provides
We hope nobody's watching.
lots of substitutes for districts and everything, but it's a pretty good idea. I like it.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions, and one actually was similar to Mr. Singfield's, so I'll start with that one. So as far as how the money is filtered and distributed, so we pay our subs now through ASI, as you said, and so this extra incentive money, would that come from Dysart, or would that still filter through ESI as well? So the guest teacher would get all the incentive and their regular sub pay through ESI?
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, it all ultimately comes from us. We pay them, so we would pay the additional stipend incentive to ESI, who would then pay the employee. So yes, it's on top of the $110 a day.
Okay. And then you mentioned, I believe you said like $112,000 roundabout. Now, was that the difference? Like, what is the difference between being fully staffed and then the extra that we'd be paying under that incentive piece? Is that the 112 you're talking about?
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, it's all modeling, so it's all estimated. So we don't know until actually it happens. So what we're looking at is, based on the last month's usage, we would pay approximately $57,000 if they just did the exact same thing for November and December.
For fully staffed, or for the 40-something% that we're using?
Well, I'm using the September month because I didn't have the data of October on that. So it's September's month, which is the 76 staff that we're actively using instead of the 291 pool. So I don't have the actual sub rate for the fill rate. John might be able to calculate that right now. So I'm using that as a model of our embedded costs. So if they continue their same behavior, we'll spend $57,000. And we did not incentivize anybody to take 5 days a week because they were already doing 5 days. Or if somebody was only doing 1 day a week, they just kept doing 1 day a week. So if they met the tier 1, tier 2, there was 32 staff members that met one of those tiers. If that just continues, it's cost $57,000. We incentivize no additional staff. But if we can get it up to 76 utilizing a tier 1, tier 2, we could pick up an additional 700 days spread over that period of time, would be 26 subs per day, and that would cost about $115,000. So that is what we're trying to achieve.
But that's not the, well, I'm just talking about what's the extra, like with that extra $1,000 and $1,500, because you're going to pay them the regular rate anyway. So I'm just talking about how much extra would it be with the incentive?
It would be $1,000 for those that met the 14 days, and $1,500 for those that met the 21 days during that 27-day period.
I understand. Maybe I'm not being clear. That's okay. I'm just trying to understand with that difference, how much extra would we be paying for those subs if we got the extra because of the incentive? Because we're going to pay them their regular daily rate anyway of 110 or
We
whatever.
pay the 110. Everything, for the 1,000 and 1,500 is all extra.
I know.
The 110 is they pay no matter what.
Right. So without the incentive, so we know what we pay without the incentive. And then if
110.
we paid the incentive, what would that be? And then subtracting those two out to get the difference, like what more we would be spending.
Can you do that on a monthly basis? Not on a per sub 110 versus 1,500, but the budget for September, how much did we pay? And total budget for December or November?
Madam President, Member Pritchard, Superintendent Kellis, if we, just going roughly off numbers that I just pulled off here, so it's a rough estimate, if we were fully staffed this month, it would be about $271,150. Going at half right now, we're at about $135,500. So there's a difference there of about $135,000 that we are not utilizing by being fully staffed. I believe that's what you're asking, correct?
Well, no, and just what the extra would be by this incentive. How much is this incentive costing us?
It will cost us roughly between, in the model, $50,000 to $112,000.
Okay. And like you said, we already have that rollover. So as far as where it's being pulled from the budget, it's not necessarily going to be where we'll have to pull from anything else that
This
we're
is
already.
one-time money, so using rollover, I think we rolled over $9.6 million. To use some of it for that is an appropriate purpose.
Mhm. I mean, I guess I'm just thinking too, like Ms. Sawyer-Sinkbill had mentioned, and I think we all can acknowledge the added stressors of our teachers right now anyway, because of COVID and all the extra that they've been having to do, then having to take more students into class. So I think, you have to weigh, especially since it sounds like we've got that rollover. For me, I look at weighing just the emotional impact and just how we're taxing our teachers, but then also giving the students to other teachers, you're also then putting more students in a room, and right now we're supposed to be trying to distance and limit our class sizes for the virus piece of it, but then also we go back to what we know as far as large class sizes means it's impacting our learning environments and it's going to impact learning. So, I know that that's a lot of money, but again, since we already have it, it sounds like the benefits are really outweighing the monetary cost, just my opinion.
Yeah, you're right.
So thanks for explaining that. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear in how, I was just trying to kind of get an idea of if we're spending all this money on subs in our current structure, really how much is this model costing us if we do the incentive? I was just trying to get an idea that it sounds like it's really not going to be a whole lot in relatively speaking.
Yeah, I
Right.
agree with that.
I guess my question, I know we're just piloting this, and then if it's successful, like revisiting it in the future, but my hardship is like, once you start that, I don't know how you backtrack from that. And I don't know if that's something that's already in the budget to cover, if we would have if we would need to continue on with something like that.
Madam
That's my
President,
concern.
Pro Tem and members of the board, are you saying, so the board is only approving this through December?
Yes,
So
yes,
it
yes.
is easy for me to say, and how do we stop it?
Right,
We only
right.
have authority to go through December.
Right.
So we would come back and report to the board as soon as we have some good data. So if it's successful and it's really working, we probably would, I would be recommending that it's a good useful, because the stress and the morale on our staff right
Right.
now is at a point that we need to do something.
Right.
And so we're hoping this does something. If it's successful, I would be recommending that we do continue it. But we do not have authority, and we're not asking for authority to
No, I
continue
know
it at
that.
this point.
Right.
We need to pilot it and see how it really is. It is a little outside the box, so for some of us, I get a little nervous getting outside the box. So
That's why you have
we
Mary
put-
Dell
Well,
to
she-
assist you with this.
Well, I wonder too if, just as part of the pilot, maybe the way that it's written or something, it can be labeled as something that is kind of it has to be triggered by something. So whether it be, you fall below a certain amount of subs, or, you hit this particular limit that kind of puts you in a little bit of a crisis mode, then maybe it can trigger this incentive program. But if we're not in that mode yet, it's not triggered. And maybe that would be a way that it's not in for good forever trying to, back away from it. It only happens during times of crisis or need. I'm just thinking out loud.
We
but-
won't know until we try.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that's another point, like with the pilot program, then what do you have measured as like then your success? Where if you would say, you know what, if we reach this, then I'd say that this pilot was successful.
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, we have discussed some of it. I'm looking at the $100,000 if we spend it and we pick up the nearly 26 subs per day is a success.
I would answer to you that our fill rate's back in the 80s, mid to high 80s. 90s would be even better, but at least get us back to the pre-COVID times when we were in the 80s and hitting that. We can manage at that kind of rate, so that's what I would be looking for.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the board, also just, we're trying everything we can to not pull teachers from their classrooms. There was a time when if they needed professional development for a new math adoption or for how to write objectives, we would pull groups in. We have canceled all of anything that would pull anybody from a campus. We know that their teaching learning specialists are being used, so we've canceled all the meetings that the TLSs would have been pulled off campus for a district meeting. We've looked at other people on campus who, it's not their job to be substitutes, but it's everybody's job at this point. We want to also be judicious about how we help the schools by not forcing the need for substitutes.
Are we thinking this is primarily because of COVID, or have we noticed a trend in we're just not getting enough guest teachers anymore?
It's 100% because of COVID. As soon as we came back, the pool just wasn't there.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up that subject about professional development, Dr. Callis, because if there is, just like you said, a particular math objective or something that needs to go for an entire group of 3rd through 5th grade teachers, we can't do it because
We have to do it a different way.
we have to do it a different way. But yes, the fact that we should be able to bring them together, either in this room or everybody meet over at a certain school, we can't do it because we don't have the substitute capacity, so.
I just have a question about so the payment then would go, I know you said it would go to ESI. Does ESI take a percentage of that, or how does that work with the contracting?
Madam President Pro Tem and members of the board, they charge a fee, so they don't take anything of that, but it does still run through the FICA and others. So the sub will not get the full amount of, but they'll get the net of that. We pay a separate fee to ESI, and it's 10% for this program.
Okay, thank you. And then, just the talk about it being related to COVID, is there any way that we can maybe not use the funds from the carryover from last year and use some other COVID funding that maybe we've received or are thinking we're going to receive?
Madam President Pro Tem, members of the board, we definitely can. Mary Dell has many spreadsheets on all of our different various fundings from that, and we have it all mapped out. We do look at very specific what's the best way. So you can see there's not a funding source tied to this, that we're not dedicating a fund. We'll look at what's the best one. So that is a great question. We talk various times, we change things based on enrollments. We're capped, but where is the money coming from? ESSER, from ESG, from DEMA, looking at that, our carry forward. So we talk on a regular basis about that, and sometimes it changes as our data changes, but we will look at what's the most appropriate place. So it could be an ESG and ESSER. Our permanent sub program that we put in place, we did pay for that or code that out of I think our ESSER funds, looking at that. And so we do look at where is the most appropriate, but that is why there's no funding source opposed to this, because we try to balance where's the best place.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I will motion to approve the guest teacher incentive program as presented.
Second.
Tracy, I think Tracy got it.
Okay,
Tracy?
I second.
Motion passes. Next, we have action discussion item I3, endorsement of nomination for the Arizona School Board Association Honor Roll Award.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and members of Cabinet. This evening, we are sad to have to bring this item forward because it represents the pending doom of what's to come. But I would ask Ms. Sawyer Sinkbell to introduce this item.
Thank you, Dr. Kellis. ASBA, Arizona School Boards Association, every year accepts nominations for Honor Roll Award. And this is for any board member that has had 8 consecutive years on their board. And there is a certain time of the year that we need to get this nomination into ASBA. And I wanted to make sure with the board's endorsement that we move forward. Ms. Tanner she is ending her 12th year on the board. Well, not just yet, but in December. And this is a way to honor any board members across the state of Arizona for their service, their continued service, anytime after 8 years, and once they're retiring. So I would like to endorse Ms. Tanner for the ASBA Honor Roll Award for all that she has, I don't want to say endured, done over the past 12 years. This is another way to honor Ms. Tanner.
Thank you. Is that your motion?
I can go ahead and make the motion.
Oh, I just want to make sure I.
No.
Yeah.
I appreciate all the board members wearing black and vests, and
We didn't plan it, but, good.
I expect veils next time and mourning. And I haven't been on an honor roll in a really long time, if that's the case.
There you go.
But no, I really appreciate it. I know it's probably going to be some small little plaque or something that, whatever, but it does mean a lot.
Actually, it's an actual award.
Oh, it is?
Oh, yeah, wait till you see it.
All right.
Okay. So yeah, I'd like to go ahead and make the motion to endorse the nomination of Ms. Jennifer Tanner for the ASBA Honor Roll Award.
Second.
You have voted already.
My mouse wasn't working.
Motion passes.
And abstain. We still have.
I
quorum.
figured I probably shouldn't.
You can.
Congratulations.
Or is it like I said good luck, but is it just a board, individual boards where
Does she have
unanimously she
it?
has it now?
She doesn't, well, we
Or is
just,
there-
oh, she has it because
Oh.
she completed over 8 years. It's just a board, it requires a board action. We have to submit it.
So I just got it for 10 years.
Yeah, you got it, you got it.
Okay.
But it requires a board
Congratulations.
action, so.
It's like you did something for it? No, no.
Maybe I earned it.
Here's a piece of candy.
I can submit it
It's like
if you'd
12 years old.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Seriously.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Any requests for future agenda items from anyone? No? Okay. Have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
Okay. Motion passes.
All right. Thank you and good night.
Thanks, everyone.